Good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and bring the meeting over, please. Good morning, everybody. Let's bring the meeting over.
Well, I think I'll just sit back here. It's awesome. We get to watch everything go on.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Let's bring the meeting over, please. Good morning, Tom Reed is my name. I'm the chair of the Greater Royal Oak Democratic Club. Could our other officers, could you introduce yourself right quick? Our treasurer and secretary. If it's your first time here, or if your first time here in a long time, we like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us why you came. Is there anybody here? It's your first time here at a meeting? For your first time here in a long time, introduce yourself and tell us why you came.
My name is Fred McBurry. My first meeting joined today. Looking forward to getting some emails. Heard about this yesterday from our group that we are part of, and thought it would be fun.
Hi, my name's Julie and this is my mom Sharon, and we heard about, I attend senior coffee class here at the center. And I heard about your event, and so here we are.
Anybody else here for the first time here, the first time during a long time, introduce yourself and tell us why you came.
Hi, I'm Hallie. I just moved over here from Canton, and since I'm new to the area, I want to get more involved in the political scene and just fun.
Anybody else for the first time here or first time here in a long time? Introduce yourself and tell us why you came. Welcome back, Gary. Gary moved away and now he's back for a brief comeback to it. Way to go, Gary. If you are on social media, if you could take a second to check in on social media, that would help it. Check into our Facebook event. It gives people the opportunity to hear about our club. We are officially a kid-friendly club. So if you know anybody who wants to come and they're not coming because they're stuck home with the kids, tell them they are welcome to bring their kids. We're always going to have a kids table over there, and sometimes they'll make some noise and we'll just pretend we don't hear it. So we are a kid-friendly club. If you know anybody with kids that are preventing them from coming, tell them to come on and bring their kids with them. And I'm sorry, Char's been leading us in the songs. I don't know if the songbooks are coming or not. I don't know. Michael has them, and I'm not sure if he's coming today.
Well, we'll come up with something.
Yeah. Announcements. Our August meeting is going to be at the Royal Oak Public Library. The reason is they're doing construction on this building, so we won't be able to be here in August. We don't meet in July in any case, but our August meeting will be at the Royal Oak Public Library. We do have a bar night scheduled. I can't remember when it is, but look on our Facebook page at events out there. We do a bar night once a month. Our vice chair, Michael Tash, organizes it. We're going to have our board meeting Friday at 7 p.m. at Lisa Mason's house. So if you're on our board, you should have gotten the email. We're going to meet Friday, 7 p.m. at Lisa Mason's house. And then we've got our club. We've adopted Cummingston Park, the north end of Royal Oak up there by Myers. Adopted means twice a year we go through and pick up the litter. And they've got a nice sign and, with our club name in front of the park, it's worth doing. But if you'd like to help us, Saturday, June 24th from 9 to noon, we're going to meet and pick up litter at Cummingston Park. So that's our cleanup day for the spring summer. Does anybody else have any announcements they'd like to make right now about any events coming up?
Tom, can I just say, I'm Debbie, I'm the
Come on up, the treasurer's report time anyways. Have you kill two birds with one stone? Four birds. Oh, 4 birds. I've got a bird's nest on my front porch right now. We can't use our front doors. We got a robin's nest.
I'm treasurer's report. Savings is $1,386.99. Checking is $4,404.65. I'm also with Moms in Action, and this is our Wear Orange weekend where we honor Hadia Pendleton, who was killed by a stray bullet in Chicago some years ago. We wear orange too, honor all survivors of gun violence. So I have, if you're a survivor, I have buttons up there for that. Otherwise, just please be aware and, thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Any questions for the treasurer? Then we're gonna have two guest speakers today when Alyssa Slotkin gets here. Of course, she's the U.S. representative running for the Democratic nomination for United States Senate. She's supposed to get here around 11 a.m. And so whenever she comes, we're just gonna let her have the floor. But our guest speaker is Emme Zanotti, who's Director of Advocacy and Engagement for Equality Michigan. We had her since, of course, June is Pride Month. We wanted to have a speaker in the Pride Month theme. But Emme Zanotti, please come on up. We'd love to hear what you have to say for Equality Michigan. Emme Zanotti, everybody.
Next time, excited to be with everybody today. Again, my name is Emme Zanotti, Director of Advocacy and Civic Engagement at Equality Michigan. Also a Royal Oaker, so right around 10 Mile and Campbell. I joke that if you turn right out of my front door and you were to trip and fall, you would land in Ferndale, but it's still technically Royal Oak. Who's heard of Equality Michigan before in this room? Show of hands. Okay, so what is Equality Michigan? Who is Equality Michigan? We are a statewide LGBTQ advocacy organization, the largest political advocacy organization that is specifically focused on LGBTQ issues here in Michigan, right? So we do a number of things across the state. We have what I call our backstop. This is a term we've endearingly called Governor Gretchen Whitmer before the legislature flipped last year was a backstop, right? Is our Department of Victim Services team. So we have a team of 5 folks that are located remotely throughout the state of Michigan, whose job it is to meet with victims of discrimination, harassment, and domestic and sexual violence who identify as being LGBTQ. That unique role they play is to serve people who the system is not designed to help or facilitate help for, right? So it's their job to help work with LGBTQ victims, find them attorneys, find them physicians, find them psychiatrists, find them all sorts of systems and representation that understands the nuances and technicalities of working with LGBTQ community members. Their role exists because we lack strong public policy in our state, right? That helps protect LGBTQ people. And so my job as the Director of Advocacy, Civic Engagement, and my team on our side of the organization is to work to change that. And so we do that a number of ways that I'll get into. But I want to start by kind of painting a bigger landscape picture for people. I'm going to ask people to do a show of hands. How many people in this room know, are, or are related to a gay person here in Michigan? Okay. Yeah. What about a transgender person? Okay, so about maybe half the hands, right? That number is continuing to increase, and that's a good thing. But a lot of the issues we're seeing both nationally and in Michigan is a result of that, a lack of familiarity with the transgender and non-binary community, and some real big players with a lot of money and investment working to try to stigmatize that community as a means of gaining power, winning elections, right? Literally using trans and non-binary people, LGBTQ kids as like a laboratory experiment to try to gain power. And that's very dangerous. And that's what we're seeing. So another show of hands, has anyone heard of a particular piece of anti-LGBTQ legislation in just the last 7 days here in the US? Yeah, that's correct. So there are over 500 pieces of anti-LGBTQ legislation that have been introduced just this year, since January 1st in state legislatures across the country. That is a new record. Over 200 of those bills specifically target the transgender and non-binary community. Another record, and over 70 of those bills have become law in different states. Does anyone want to venture a guess if any of those bills have been introduced in Michigan since January 1st? Yes, yeah, I think maybe 5 bills explicitly targeting the community, bathroom bills, sports bans, carving out widespread religious exemptions in discrimination laws that would allow people to discriminate against LGBTQ people in public accommodations, employment, if they have sincerely held religious beliefs, right? So a number of those things. On the good side, though, has anyone heard of a specific piece of legislation that's been passed in Michigan this year that supported the LGBTQ community? That's right, I heard Elliott Larson, right? So we amended this year, the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act of 1976 to finally include sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. And I will tell you how our work feeds into that frame. So the work we do doesn't just start with advocating for good legislation, bugging legislators, things like that. It is also our job to make sure the community across Michigan has a voice and a say in this process and feels empowered along the way. And so last year, I'm sure everyone remembers the name Tudor Dixon, right? So famously took a lot of cheap shots against the trans community. After winning the primary for Republican governor, her first tweet said, "At Gretchen Whitmer, what is a woman?" Right? The very first thing she said as the Republican candidate for governor. So we knew what we were in. At the end of the very first debate against Governor Whitmer, it was after the governor was no longer allowed to have a rebuttal. She couldn't say anymore. They were literally fading to black on the TV, and she took another cheap shot at the trans community. It's easy to brush those aside and say, oh, well, we pivot, we talk about abortion, we talk about this, we talk about that. The reality is, even if the legislation isn't happening, the rhetoric alone has an incredibly harmful impact on LGBTQ people in Michigan and parents of LGBTQ kids. The Trevor Project did a survey in 2022 in Michigan. 89% of LGBTQ kids they surveyed said that the political rhetoric in this state negatively impacts their mental health and well-being, either all the time or some of the time. Only 11% say it doesn't bother me, right? So 9 out of 10 kids who identify as LGBTQ notice what's being said about them in our state. And that's a problem. We've seen in other states already that have had anti-LGBTQ legislation. And a slight trigger warning here, we've seen kids attempt suicide and specifically reference legislation that's been moving in their state and the way politicians and the media are talking about these things. So our work last year kind of fed into what became the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act this year, right? We as a community played a direct role in that. So first, Equality Michigan ran a very robust statewide digital ad campaign that featured 2 mothers of transgender children. And it humanized their stories on people's TV screens and while you're watching YouTube and Hulu and any other ad streaming service, right? Shared the perspective that these parents are not people who are indoctrinating their children, or the term they like to use is calling our community groomers, right? These kids came to their parents, expressed extreme discomfort about the bodies they were in, the roles they were assigned in our society, and their parents, with licensed clinicians who are using peer-reviewed research and information, made decisions to help alleviate that distress for their kids. We sometimes call that gender-affirming care, right? And so we humanized those stories around this state. We thought that was important, not just to talk about elections and voting, but also to make sure we continue to work into the framework of Michiganders' minds that these people are humans, they are families, they deserve dignity, they deserve respect. We kind of parlayed that into a pretty robust voter turnout campaign. So we were able to raise $2 million last year and actually talked to over 100,000 LGBTQ supporters. So not necessarily people, but people who identify with being pro-LGBTQ equality. We knocked on over 100,000 doors. We made over 450,000 phone calls. We sent over 50,000 texts in select geographies around the state. And we believe that had an impact, right? The people we talked to were lower propensity voters, but the discussions we had with them led them to turn out at a rate that was higher than the state of Michigan's average voter turnout rate, right? So we actually increased turnout for people who support LGBTQ equality. And we think what we saw on January 12th was a result of that, which is that on the first day of this legislature, State Senator Jeremy Moss, I'm sure a lot of you know the senator very well, and Representative Jason Hoskins introduced bills in each of their chambers to amend the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act to include LGBTQ people. And that bill was signed into law by the governor in March. So we do a lot of that work. We then continue to bring the community into the conversation. We just had our first statewide lobby day in Lansing. since the first statewide lobby day for the LGBTQ community in Lansing since 2017. We had 100 people from around the state represent 45 different state house districts. There was 2 people who came all the way from Traverse City for one meeting. They had one legislator who would take a meeting with them from where they're from, and they still showed up. They got up at 4 a.m. They drove 3 hours or whatever it is to Lansing. They had their meeting. They said hi to everyone, and they turned around and went home. That's incredibly impactful, right? Bringing the community to Lansing, showing them that that building is as much theirs as it is anybody else's, is critical. You could feel the buzz that day as people started to say, this community is responding to the criticism, to the negativity, to the attacks. And my kind of veiled promise to anyone who continues this is that we will need a room that's twice as big next year for our advocacy day if they keep this nonsense up, right? So those are the ways we try to engage the community in this conversation and make sure it's not just me speaking to Democratic clubs and any other group that will hear me, but it's actually the community sharing their perspective, their stories with their legislators, because that's what influences decisions. That's what changes people's minds. That's what moves people. And it's our responsibility as an organization to make sure that's happening everywhere in Michigan. So that's a lot of the work we do. You'll also see us try to engage allies in this conversation. So referencing the Civil Rights Bill again, you may have seen that there was a letter signed by faith leaders across the state of Michigan. Almost 80 faith leaders across the state signed on to this letter supporting the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, as is, no broad religious exemptions. And that's not just to virtue signal to people that faith leaders support LGBTQ issues. That's because LGBTQ people always hear a narrative that they have to choose between their faith and who they are. And we no longer want them to have to make that choice. We want them to know that there are faith leaders, even though we typically only lift faith up in a conversation against LGBTQ people, that there are so many faith leaders across our state who support them. So we do a lot of things. Yeah. And I'm not a person of faith, but I mean that really important. We know that's really important. And so we continue to engage different constituent groups around the state in conversations like this. We did a joint op-ed with the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, actually, for the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act. So continuing to build those bridges and try to not just move policy that's better for the community and that protects people and saves lives, but also change people's minds, right? To shift the narrative from one that's all anti-LGBTQ to something that recognizes our community's humanity. And so that's the work we do. Like I said, I'm in Royal Oak, but we are all over the state. My boss, our executive director, is actually based out of Kalamazoo. We have a couple more people in Metro Detroit. And then, one of our victim services advocates is all the way up in Marquette, actually serving the Upper Peninsula. So we're kind of all over, but we work on a ton of things from state legislation, municipal policy, helping school boards defend attacks against the schools. I don't know. I don't think we've seen any of those in Royal Oak, right? But if you were just to drive a little bit north into Benton, Fowlerville over towards Lansing, the west side of the state, like New Buffalo, things like that, I've seen a lot of anti-LGBTQ noise at their school board meetings. And so trying to provide parents with resources and tools as well. So that's a lot of the work we do summed up. And June is an important month for our community, right? I don't know, is anyone planning on going to a Pride festival or parade this month? Awesome. Well, I know our neighbors just to the south have a Pride this afternoon, so I encourage everyone to go to Ferndale and check it out. We'll be there. I won't personally be there. I got to go to Kalamazoo's Pride, but certainly I encourage people to go check it out. Right? It's a terrific to see the LGBTQ community be centered and people feeling safe about who they are. It's a very peaceful demonstration of community, and I encourage everyone to experience that once. And my call to action is we actually will be marching in the Motor City Pride Parade next Sunday. And so if anyone's feeling like putting on some tennis shoes and waving a pride flag, tossing some candy or something, let me know. It would be a good time. So that's it. I'm happy to pause or answer any questions people have about anything that we do, anything policy related, anything about the national policy landscape.
So do you have examples of good legislation that's been passed in other states?
Yeah, we do. And so one of those is actually introduced in both the House and the Senate. And I should have mentioned this one because the person who introduced these two bills in the Senate is State Senator Mallory McMorrow, who everyone here knows, right? Yeah. And Mallory's fantastic, right? A terrific ally and advocate for our community, and we're lucky to have her. So she in the Senate, Representative Jason Hoskins and Representative Felicia Brayback in the House recently introduced bills that would ban the practice of conversion therapy in Michigan. Does everyone know what conversion therapy is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it is essentially the practice of trying to, whether it's via talk therapy or worse forms of therapy, like, electroshock therapy and other really kind of disgusting things, trying to convince someone that they are not LGBTQ. That's what conversion therapy is. And so Senator McMorrow and Representative Hoskins and Brayback have introduced those bills, and they're heading for hearings pretty soon. And so that's a perfect example. 21 states and Washington, D.C. have signed similar versions of this bill into law already. It has been a bipartisan bill in every single one of those states. 7 Republican governors have signed this bill into law across the country. So sometimes we don't even talk about this bill as a specifically LGBTQ issue. The reality with conversion therapy is that, there was one of the scientific journals published some peer-reviewed research in 2020 that said LGBTQ youth who are subjected to conversion therapy attempt suicide more than twice as much as LGBTQ youth who are not subjected to conversion therapy. So if you know someone in the state legislature who's a Republican and they have ever to ask you about that, this is a suicide prevention bill, right? This is a harm prevention bill. This gives families autonomy to make more informed decisions. So what the legislation actually does create sanctions for any licensed clinician who practices conversion therapy and uses their licensure to practice conversion therapy. So that one's a perfect example of what's happening in Michigan right now.
Are you seeing rates that are increasing the discrimination institutionally to Michigan? Are people like wanting to move here because of what you and the governor are doing?
So I'm not as in tune to the migratory trends of the LGBTQ community. I would say there are states where the LGBTQ community is probably starting to enter refugee status to an extent. I don't use that term lightly. So Equality Michigan is a part of a federation of organizations, similar to how the labor organizations might roll up to the AFL-CIO or something, right? It's called the Equality Federation. So we have kind of like sister organizations, partner organizations in states throughout the country. Our partner in Florida is called Equality Florida. They have actually put travel advisories out there for LGBTQ people not to visit the state. I was talking to a trans woman who was getting ready to go visit Florida pretty soon. I think she just had a layover at the airport in Orlando. And she's like, I'm just gonna ask the flight attendants if I can pee on the plane, right, before I go in the airport, because she doesn't want to end up in jail or something. So I mean, there are heightened situations. Equality Florida, to some extent, has also advocated for families of LGBTQ kids, specifically trans kids, to leave the state. We've seen in a number of states, they're actually not just banning access to healthcare for LGBTQ kids, but they're actually trying to stop kids who have already been on certain forms of healthcare. So they're basically detransitioning laws. So you might have a 16-year-old trans girl who was on hormone blockers for a couple of years until she had a little more autonomy to make a decision and is living a perfectly happy life as a teenage girl. And they're trying to, they would be stripping her of access to estrogen and testosterone blockers and things like that, which will have incredibly negative and adverse impacts on kids' well-being. So yeah, we are anecdotally seeing people leave states that we know of. We don't know exactly where they're going, right? But certainly there's work to be done in Michigan to make sure that state can be as inclusive as possible. And that's why it's important to continue to pass things like civil rights legislation, banning conversion therapy, right? People talk about Michigan as potentially like a sanctuary state, things like that. I don't know how we do that. If conversion therapy is legal, I don't know how we do that. If some of these really old kind of zombie laws are still on the books here compared to states like California or Oregon or Washington or Illinois, which is close to us, Minnesota, actually probably one of the leaders on LGBTQ rights across the country. And so we have to continue to get our house in order to make sure when that time comes, and it might be coming soon, that Michigan's a safe place for people to relocate to, for sure.
For years, it was perfectly legal to fire a person from their job. They were LGBTQ. That's Elliott Larson fixed that in Michigan, or did it?
That's correct. So actually, I want to dive into some nuance here, some policy nuance, things like that for a second. The Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, that bill that was signed into law by the governor, technically doesn't go into effect until probably next spring. So it did not pass immediate effect in the Senate. That means it does not go into law until 30 days after the end of this legislative session, right? However, there are legal framework we can rely on to say until that day, LGBTQ people are protected in employment, right? I mean, the bill does that. You cannot fire someone because they're gay or transgender. But we actually saw two huge court cases in the US in the last couple of years. One was a package of suits, and one of the people in the lawsuits was actually a transgender woman from Garden City who was working at a funeral home and was fired when she came out as a transgender woman. She won her lawsuit in front of the US Supreme Court, and they said, no, you can't fire someone because they're a transgender woman and you don't like the way they're dressing and expressing themselves. You're essentially firing them because of their sex, which is a protected characteristic. In Michigan, so that covers employment. In Michigan, we saw a similar case about public service, like public goods, where just a public seller wouldn't sell product to a gay person. And that was the Roush World case, and that was settled in the state Supreme Court last year and solidified court protections on that front. So the protections exist today. If you know someone or you've been discriminated against because of your LGBTQ identity, you should definitely file an incident report on our page, and we are happy to review that information. We work closely with the ACLU on things like this. They've litigated a lot of these cases. Another big front is bullying. We're seeing a huge uptick in bullying in schools across the state, mostly because I think there's a lot of parents who are digesting this rhetoric that they're seeing from media and politicians. They're passing it on to their children, and that's having a really disparate impact on kids in schools. And so I can't tell you how many parents come to me and don't realize that they have protections in the event that their school systems are not doing appropriate things to protect their kids from bullying. So if you hear of these incidences, definitely send them to Equality Michigan so we can get them connected to the appropriate resources. The reality is we can have all the good laws we want. If we can't litigate some of them and you know make a bad example out of bad actors, right? Then they have less teeth. So if you hear of those situations, certainly send folks our way and we can help work with them.
You have a question, anybody?
Hi. I used to live in Chicago and I was involved with GLSEN. Back then it was Gay, Lesbian, Straight Teachers Network, educational network. Anyway, GLSEN helps kids. It helps protect LGBT kids in schools. And I wanted to get involved. I'm a retired teacher here in Michigan and I can't get a call back. GLSEN doesn't seem to be operating in Michigan locally. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, GLSEN was doing some stuff in Southeast Michigan. I haven't worked as closely with them in recent years. If education is specifically the vehicle and the lane you're interested in working in, there are some really good organizations that do that work. The primary one that comes to mind for me is an organization called MOASH, the Michigan Organization of Adolescent Sexual Health. They started as an organization that was advocating for more inclusive sex education, but it's extended to something probably more comprehensive than that. I actually just partnered with them to bring 10 transgender teenagers from across Michigan to Lansing to meet with the LGBTQ Legislative Caucus and practice what it's like to have conversations with lawmakers and things like that. But they do phenomenal work. But of course, welcome you to connect with me and happy to try to plug you in to an organization that's doing what you want to be doing.
Any other questions for Emme?
Democratic Party reports. Any Democratic Party organizations need to make a report right now? William, anything with the precinct delegates? I guess we'll hear from candidates and elected officials first. But first, I should say, if you are a resident of Royal Oak and you haven't signed the 4 petitions for club members who are running for the city commission, they're sitting on the table over there. And if you live in Clawson, could you raise your hand? You've got a member of our Democratic Club running for the city commission in Clawson, and he would appreciate your signature as well. Let's hear from elected officials reports first. What elected officials would like to give reports? We've got our mayor, Mike Fournier, just showed up. Mike, come on up and give us your elected officials and candidates report at the same time. Mike is our incumbent mayor. He's a longtime club member, and he's running for re-election as mayor of Royal Oak. Mike Fournier.
I'm sorry for my tardiness, with 3 kids on a busy sports morning, it's, you know, you have to remain caffeinated all the time and just get through, so. Well, you know, I guess we have really 2 reports. One is half campaign, the other one's half city. With the city business, as you guys know, we're undergoing our master plan right now. I think we probably have talked about this in the past, but we are making good traction. We're getting a tremendous amount of community input about, you know, what we love about our community, what we want to keep, what we think should change to be a little bit more contemporary with the times, maybe making, you know, just getting a little bit more walkable, making it, you know, kind of cleaning up some of those industrial areas and thinking about new uses for those areas. And of course, you know, everything else that, oh, I see Commissioner Douglas is here. So I'm going to stop talking about the master plan process because that is her favorite. But if you haven't already, there's still opportunities and there's still ways you can get a hold of us and put your input in. It's being managed by a professional firm. And I just encourage you to get involved, know what's going on. There's going to be a lot of chatter out there to disrupt the process, and that's okay. I mean, that's the world we live in today. But, you know, us residents are gonna, you know, put our output or input into the discussion, and we'll have some good decisions regardless of some of the noise that may be out there. Got a lot going on this summer. You know, our parks are up and running. You know, the splash pads are up and running. A lot of the hard work we've done as a result of our club, getting the right people on board, supporting the right projects are really in full steam ahead right now. So it's going to be a really exciting time this summer in Royal Oak. I'm also happy to say the budget process is completed. We passed our budget this year. Our new finance director is absolutely amazing. She put together a budget that frankly, we could all understand as commissioners and that residents should be able to understand. So when that gets, you see it up online and you have any questions, it's really put in a format that, you know, it's not just a general ledger. It's presented in a way where we understand our sources of revenue. We understand how our expenses are going, every tax dollar we give, where it's going, how we're using it. And it's a really good document to take a look at, way better than anything we've had in the past. So I encourage you, if you're having a hard time sleeping one night, take a chance, open up the browser and check out our new finance document. With that, I'm proud to say, especially with the support of a lot of folks in this room, is Dr. Herzog here? Oh, there she is. Hi, Amanda. Her and the Environmental Advisory Board really did a good job coaching us about how we needed to really have a full-time person managing our SCAP and our environmental priorities moving forward. So when the city manager put his budget into place, there was a request for some new positions. We kind of changed that a little bit, I guess you could say. You know, we do expect that, you know, we could have a couple financial challenges ahead of us. We kind of held off on a few positions we didn't see absolutely necessary, but the one position we put into the budget was to have this environmental sustainability manager on staff, work at the issues, get the grants, and really somebody that is of the experience and professional caliber to move our city even further than what we've done right now. So we've had a lot of hard work from everybody on our SCAP and our environmental sustainability plans, but now we have to hand that over to a coach, you know, to a team leader, to somebody that's really going to drive these issues, you know, 40 hours a week for the city. So I'm really excited to announce that we're going to have this position in place, and we're going to find a really good candidate to help, you know, support our values as a community. Maybe on the campaign front, nice shirt, by the way, Tom. So I think we have some absolutely amazing candidates this year running for office in Royal Oak. I mean, we have an accomplished attorney that knows her stuff beyond belief. We have 2 PhDs that are running, that bring a tremendous amount of experience in the disciplines that they work with every day. And then rounding up as the 9th batter, you got me, the guy that sells car parts. So, you know, really good lineup. Police goes with it. But I'm excited that, you know, I'm putting my name back on the ballot this year, as you guys know. Really grateful for everybody that's out there collecting signatures and bringing back that feedback to the community, so we understand and get a pulse of, you know, what you're hearing out there. Sometimes as candidates or as electeds, we hear things differently. Sometimes for the worse, sometimes for the better. But getting that feedback from you, getting that help from you really is going to help us move forward and get the right people at the table to make the right decisions on behalf of us. So we got what, till July 15th, July 25th? My wife may have told me July 15th because she knows I procrastinate a little bit. Okay. July 15th, thank you. We're on the same team. They don't take. I think we can do anything fast. Yeah, really exciting stuff going on in the community. And I think I've talked too long, so I'll open it up for a couple questions. Yes.
Yeah, Keith Moore has been in his position for a while, and I'm just kind of curious on your take on our police force. Earlier, I advocated on a transparency dashboard, you know, just to kind of see what, you know, stops and things like that were in our community. And I'm just kind of curious if you've seen any efforts on either DEI or any policies within the police force.
Yeah, so what I'll say about Chief Moore, it's a night and day difference from our former chief. Okay, his approach to policing is, I'll say, more progressive, but we have to understand the scale within policing. Is, you know, there's always going to be a little bit of more of that conservative, not only conservative from a politics point of view, but I mean, you know, just resistant to change a little bit because they don't necessarily want to make too many moving parts. I think that so far his first year, he's made some steps to see how our 79 sworn officers can adapt to some of the change. It sounds small and trite, but allowing them to show their tattoos and allowing them to have facial hair, going to social media, posting things, sending them to different types of training, doubling down on de-escalation. DEI, I know, is something we've talked about with the chief. I have not seen his plan yet. But it is something that I would put confidence in Chief Moore right now, that he's an academic by heart. He's just got back from the FBI Academy. Spent a couple months down there learning more about how to be more engaged in the community. And I think that he's going to do a great job. The challenge we have is just the speed, right? And I think that we have to meet him where he's at and then just push a little bit more. But I think he's the right person, considering all the candidates out there we could possibly have for police chief. I think we have a really good one in Chief Moore right now. So we have to, you know, he tolerates, I would say he tolerates, but he embraces when I call him and challenge him on certain issues, and we have really good dialogue, and he listens. So I think that that's a good step in the right direction. But you know, he's very methodical in his approach. And the most important thing, I think, that the rank and file of the police department really respect him and know that he's, you know, he's always going to make the right decisions and he's going to deal with problem officers and in the right way. And he'll be transparent if there's ever an issue. But so far, night and day difference from, yeah, former leadership. Yes.
I guess I'm not clear on the issues of this, say no to rezoning.
That makes two of us.
I just planning to cover.
I'll let Commissioner Douglas handle that question.
I
And
know
I'll
the
be
signs
happy
are-
to hear her answer because I have no idea what all this is about.
Okay, well, I know from where the signs are, the R's, that I don't want to vote for that. I know I've been against it, but I guess I'm not sure why.
I'll just give one hint before Commissioner Douglas said that. I've interpreted it as sort of like build the wall, but an invisible wall in Royal Oak. So that's really how I understand it. Oh, my time's up. Any more questions? No, well, that means everything is going swimmingly well in the city of Royal Oak. And, we have some issues where we're, oh, yes.
I just wanted to comment, Mike, just having attended a number of city commission meetings in the last couple of months, I think you do a fantastic job of running that meeting and contending with, some of the naysayers. You give them the space, you show respect, and yet you move the meeting forward, really nicely. And also the provocations that you deliver, you just do a really nice job. So thank you.
My children this morning about the tour list I gave them today, I think my confidence level was right here, so I can stay in that, Paul. That means a lot. And I hope we carry, it takes discipline and it's something you have to work at. And I think for all of us here, things are gonna get ugly during campaign season. I think if we all just hold our head high, make sure we're disciplined, don't take the bait, I think we're better. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think we're better and we can rise above some of the rhetoric that's in the community. I tell my kids, if you always do the right thing, time is your ally. And I think for us, we've shown over the years that by always engaging people positively, agreeing to disagree, and just putting forward our vision and our values as a team here has always proven to be successful. And so I think if we keep that spirit up, and I'll commit to biting my tongue as most especially at the commission table. And I think we'll do that on the campaign trail as well. So great.
City Commissioner Charles, but if you want to help, the candidates right now do need help gathering signatures on petitions. You can grab a petition from Mike or one of the other candidates, and if you live in Royal Oak and you haven't signed them yet, they're on the table for there. City Commissioner Shaw Douglas.
Thanks, Tom. Mike covered a lot of the territory here, so I'm going to do a couple event announcements. And I think this speaks volumes about the kind of city Royal Oak is, because on June 14th from 3 to 9 p.m. we will have the Family Pride event at the Royal Oak Farmers Market. You may recall the first one, I think it was 2019. We were overwhelmed by the number of families, parents with young kids who are LGBTQ or our allies, came out to support the whole idea of families in Pride. So there'll be food trucks, there'll be music. And again, that's June 14th, 3 to 9 p.m. Juneteenth, how many cities around Southeast Michigan celebrate Juneteenth? Royal Oak does, damn it. So this will be June 19th from 3 to 8 p.m. in Centennial Commons. Again, entertainers, very family-friendly event, competitions for kids and so forth. So come and show your commitment to an inclusive Royal Oak at those two events. So I'm looking at social media, I know. And somebody posts a question, they say, what are these no rezoning signs about and where can I get one? Yeah, it's got the word no in it, and I'm down with that, right? So there are two possibilities here about what no rezoning means. In the city who never want the city to change. They want to turn us into colonial Williamsburg, capture a snapshot of where we are today and never see blighted properties removed or existing properties brought up to code or brought into new uses that reflect contemporary desires and practices here in Royal Oak. So that's one possibility. And I'm just going to say that that is wrong. There's another possibility. And we really know this, right? This is a political ploy. Every 2 years, when we have local elections, they come up with some fakakta claim. The city is trying to destroy the farmers market. We're going to ruin the Veterans Memorial. And I would say, those drew a lot of attention, but no rezoning. I mean, is that the best they can do? So I would encourage you to do, as the gentleman said over here, don't listen to those people and don't vote for people who talk about no rezoning because it's a bogus political ploy. Support the candidates share our values. That's all.
Yeah.
That's over here.
Okay, so where do you see, we're going through the redoing the master plan, right? Where do you actually see what the proposals are? They're online, do you go?
So there are like three phases of the process. We went through one phase in February where the consultants listened to us. And I will say we had more than 300 people show up at these neighborhood listening sessions. And a number of you came, and thank you for speaking at the tables and expressing your desires and your values, because at any given table, there'd be one of us and one of them, and at least our views were balancing out or zeroing out their stupid claims. A couple weeks ago, we went through an amazing, what's called a charrette. For the entire week, the consultants again brought people in, they synthesized the results of the previous discussions and said, okay, here's what we heard. And what do you think about that? And then they said, here are some ideas, and they actually like drew pictures of nodes or segments of the city that they thought were consistent with the values that they heard and the desires of our people. Now they will take that input and come back to us August maybe, I'm not sure what the time label is, with some actual designs and plans that again, they will seek community input on. So stay tuned, you know, I'm always up here and Tom's good about putting this in the emails because there will be another round of public input if we really need your voices there again too.
Okay, can we actually see what they came up with before? I'm just curious.
Not right now. I mean, they're still processing the results of that week-long process and refining drawings and maps that they'll be able to. It's a very visual process. So give them time to develop those ideas and draw those things that we can react to. Okay, sorry, over here, Lynn.
Yeah, I guess my interpretation of the no rezoning, because I went to the charrette and it was really concentrated on the affordable housing. So that's where you had little comments going back and forth. So it just seems to be the fear of what's going to happen to single family housing in those communities and any multiple housing that goes on in there. So that's my interpretation of. In the affordable housing section is when the dialogue is starting to happen.
Okay. Yes, Mary.
Can you just clarify for everyone what the master plan is? I understand that you do it supposedly every 10 years or 20 years. And what it includes, because from what these people are telling people, the rezoning is going to be done in the master plan. And that I assume is not true. So could you just clarify, because I went to that last meeting and I thought they did a good job of saying, okay, if we're going to increase our housing, these are the areas that we need to do, but it doesn't really include the rezoning. So if you could just clarify that.
The master plan is a vision statement about how we want our city to look and how we want the elements of it to function together. So it's a far more visionary process. It may drive zoning, but new and so the state of Michigan requires cities to update their master plan every 5 years. But that update can be sort of rubber stamp. It doesn't have to be comprehensive. But it has now been more than 20 years since Royal Oak took that broad view, engaged the citizens to find out, what they want, where they want to see us in the future. So this has been the comprehensive redo of the master plan. So the ideas that are generated there may result in new zoning or may not, but rezoning is an entirely second step. It's an entirely separate process. It's as intensive as the master plan, but nothing is going to be rezoned or changed as a result of the master plan. Mike.
Does that mean you're not going to be able to build high-rise multifamily homes in the middle of neighborhoods?
Much. No.
Well, one thing we have to remember about these signs on the lawns, usually another sign right beside it, saying a gentleman's name who I don't even want to say it.
Correct.
They go together.
Here's me. Yes, what scares me though is that I'm seeing it in, on lawns of people who are frequently reasonable. That frightens me, and, I'm hoping that we can have a good information giving, campaign to, counteract it, because I'm seeing it in places where people are usually sane.
Noted. Thanks. All right, great. I won't take up any more of your time. Tom, thanks very much.
You're absolutely correct. We need to make sure people get information. So all of these candidates, right now, they're collecting signatures. And one thing you can do that helps a lot is just go out with the candidate while they're collecting signatures, because then you can help them. Because a lot of times the candidate will get corralled by people who have a lot of detailed questions. If they have someone with them helping, that helper can continue to collect signatures while the candidate has longer and more detailed instructions. Mike James is the one who's coordinating. When he hears about candidates going out to collect signatures, he tries to find volunteers to go out with them. So make sure, Mike, how are you collecting names of people who volunteer? Just
Right now on Facebook, there's an advertisement with an email to me, and you can reach out to me on Facebook or corner me here and tell me you're interested. I'll get your email or your phone number, and I'll tell you about opportunities that I know of. And then also talk to the candidates themselves, because they may have other instances, but I'm focusing on Saturday mornings at the farmers market to organize people into shifts.
It's a pretty simple thing to do. It's usually pretty fun. Yeah, but if you're looking for a concrete way, you can help right now. And it's kind of amazing to me when I think back. I've been involved with this club since the late '90s, but we've several times endorsed Republicans for nonpartisan offices for city commission and judicial and stuff. But locally, the right wing has been captured by its most extreme elements, just like at the national level. And they're simply off the beam. And when they form a slate to run for office, I mean, if they get elected, they're going to embarrass us. These people are, they're just extreme. Some of them are overt racists and homophobes, and these are very dangerous people. We can't sit back and let these people get elected. It might happen anyways. Maybe despite our best efforts, some of these cranks will get elected to local office, but we can't sit back and let it happen. We have to fight as hard as we possibly can. And we sometimes get accused of trying to control the city commission. That's not the case at all. We're trying to keep decent people on the city commission. We've got to stay involved, and people like here at a meeting like this, we're the types of people who realize what's at stake, and you need to get involved. Make sure you do something this campaign to help at a grassroots level, either collecting signatures, donating money, knocking on doors. Those are the big three things. Wait.
If anybody would like to canvass door to door for these signatures, I can generate lists of likely Democrats, potentially friendly recipients of such. If you'd like to have a list, I can produce.
William's in charge of the precinct delegates for the Royal Oak. He's got access to list generation and stuff like that. So we have some other elected, when Alyssa Slotkin comes, we're going to suspend whatever we're doing, like Alyssa talk. She has to run off to another event, but let's hear from the rest of our elected officials. We've got a couple of school board trustees to give a report on what's happening inside the Royal Oak schools. And then right after that, we will hear from the candidates in the room that are running for city commission. Let's hear from our school board members.
And so I guess, the biggest thing that's going on right now are all, the graduates, right? All of the things that are going on with students graduating from our schools. We're so proud of all of our graduates. If you drive out of here and go by the high school, you'll see all of the posters of the graduating class for this year. Another thing that I want to bring up is that we are really promoting our long-range planning
Okay, and so one thing is that now we've gotten to the point where we have our drafts of all of the goals and action plans and strategies that we want to consider committing to, for a long range plan. And you can go onto the Royal Oak Schools District website and you can take a survey. And I really encourage you to do that because one of the goal areas is our community partnerships. And so you can really give us some valuable input about how you'd like to see the schools interact with the community and ways that the community can help bolster our schools. So I really appreciate it. You could go to royaloakschools.org, and if you just scroll down the homepage, you'll see that that link for the survey. Thank you.
And some other not maybe so fun things, but we remember 4 years ago when the Royal Schools kind of didn't even acknowledge they have primary consistent issue. It happened. 3 years ago, we kind of had a new school board. 2 years ago, we passed the first ever prime resolution in regular schools. 2 years ago, we passed a resolution that said the school buildings will all fly at night clubs, which we're doing. Yesterday, a parent from the middle school called berating the principal of the flags, wondering why the NSC flag was flying for the school, why the schools are indoctrinating their children, why we're forcing agendas down our children's throats. Next week, we're going to call the superintendent. Inform the superintendent that he plans to come to the school meeting on Thursday, which is my escrow view. On Thursday night at 6:30, if you have nothing to do and want a good time, you can come out and praise the Royal School Board for the inclusion of all students, regardless of their sexuality or any other diverse diversity of the children. Would appreciate if you can all come out. The former teacher was adding to get involved, but see you there.
Just to mention that we will have a resolution in support of Emme on the agenda. And so that gives you the ability to speak to the topic during our first community portion of the agenda.
So my vision of that meeting is we're going to do this man as and his friends are most likely just five friends when they walk in. So if we can arrange public comments, then our comments are saying this. It's going to show them what the community Royal really is. Do you have any questions for us?
Where's the board meeting?
Yeah, where's that?
It's at the board office, which is
That's the building.
Thank you. Churchill High School.
You need to be there at 6:30 to speak at public comment.
The meeting starts at 6:30. Never sure how long it's going to be before public comment, but. Rachel?
Yeah, this is not a question, this is some comments. I teach voice and piano at my home, and I have a number of kids in the Royal Oak Public Schools. Yesterday, one of my middle schoolers, she's in 7th grade, came to my house in festive gear. And there had not just been a flag flown at Royal Oak Middle School, but they had had a ceremony when they put up that flag with cupcakes. And I don't know another community which would have a middle school that actually had a ceremony to put up that rainbow flag. So as much as this dude called and complained, I see the power in the kids and how they're responding to the fact that this was provided. I just wanted to say that.
There's a Rachel 20. Any other questions?
So that's Thursday, 6:30 PM at Churchill School, if you'd like to speak at the public comment at the school board meeting, and I'll put that in an email. Let's hear from we've got candidates for the city commission here. Let's hear from our Clausen candidate first, and then we'll hear from our Matt Finkowski, was it? Matt Finkowski, resident of Clausen and candidate for city commission. Tell us why you're running.
Thank you, everyone. Some of you may know me. About 20 years ago, I ran for city commission in Royal Oak when I lived here. Moved to Troy, but now I'm in Clawson. So I've been, continuing my tour of southeast Oakland County communities. But I moved to Clawson and the city council there needs some real help. If anybody wants to watch a master class and how not to run a municipal meeting, just get on YouTube and watch any one of the city council meetings. I'm sorry for Clawson for the past couple of years. So anyway, that's why I'm running a little bit about me. Grew up in Troy, went to Michigan State, got an engineering degree. Did that for a little while, then went and got a law degree at Wayne State. Got 2 daughters and a dog, and I've been a Democrat for a long time. Oh, and about 11 years ago, I co-led the recall campaign in Troy to get rid of Tea Party / MAGA mayor. So Clawson needs a little bit of help, and I'm hoping that I can help them out. And if you could help me out, I've got a fundraiser on June 29th in Clawson at Whiskey Taco Foxtrot. I'll post some details, and I haven't even created the webpage yet. That's all coming this week. So, it's campaign time. So thank you. I appreciate meeting you all. And for those of you who I have not met before.
And then please send me that information. We can post it on our club page and include it in the email and all that stuff. Let's hear from our Royal Oak City Commission candidates now. Who would like to go first? We've got Rebecca and Amanda and yeah, okay. Rebecca Cheesem, candidate for Royal Oak City Commission.
We tried to rock, paper, scissors over there, but I need new glasses, so they go pretty well. So my name is Becca Cheetham, and I first want to thank the club for all the support that has already been given to me in my first run for office. I've never done this before, so I really am very appreciative of that. Secondly, I just also want to say again how pleased I am to be one of 3 women running for this role. I'm really excited about that. We each, I want to say, are very accomplished in our fields. And so we have Monica Hunt, who's an attorney, Dr. Amanda Herzog, who's an environmental scientist, and myself. I'm a public health expert. And so I think collectively we bring this really great skill set and experience that could really help in, progressive movement within the city of Royal Oak. So I've talked on this floor a couple of times already about my platform, which is supporting seniors, environmental sustainability, housing affordability, and making sure that Royal Oak is a community where everyone can thrive. This morning, I'd like to just go a little bit more on my personal roots and just tell you a little bit more about myself. So I live here in Royal Oak with my husband and my daughter. My husband is an automotive engineer, and he works on the cutting edge of electric vehicle technology, so I'm proud of that. My daughter loves art, nature, soccer. She's 8 years old. She just changed her name to Lily. So I am apparently fulfilling my goal of raising a strong girl who's now named Lily. I will admit that I am a transplant to Royal Oak in Michigan. I grew up in a town filled with cornfields outside of Allentown, Bethlehem area in Pennsylvania. Some of you may know that area from the Billy Joel song, Allentown, from the 80s, yeah, which was about the closing of the steel mill, which was actually in Bethlehem, so that's a little weird. So in fact, when I practiced this talk with my husband this morning, I actually called the song Bethlehem, it's called Allentown. I'm like, oh yeah. But I saw the steel mill close, I saw Mack trucks leave and go south, and I, even as a kid, kind of understood the devastation that left to many in our community. My family was okay. My dad was a university administrator. My mom worked in social services. So we did okay, but that did, I noticed that. I observed that as a child. After graduation, I went to college in Maine, and then I served 2 years in the Peace Corps in the West Indies, and I lived in Boston for about 8 years. Over this period of time, I largely worked in community-based organizations, doing youth development work, HIV prevention, and community organizing. So I moved to Michigan to go to University of Michigan, so I am part of the Go Blue Club.
Green.
Oh, green. All right.
That's the way to say that. So I chose, University of Michigan to specifically work with a renowned scholar, Dr. Barbara Israel, who's brilliant, who her focus is on community engagement and community engaged research. And that was what I really wanted to do. So this means I have specific training in how to work with community members, mobilize community members, work together, build consensus, and get things done. Over the course of my career, I worked on issues related to at-risk teens, immigrant communities, chronically homeless individuals, and caregivers of people with dementia. So I've learned a lot working with these different communities, and what I've learned informs my policy and leadership styles. So today, now I'm a professor at Oakland University in public health. At Oakland University, I've had several leadership roles. I led the implementation of a new Master of Public Health program. I got that program accredited, and now that program is 10 years old and is pretty reputable within the area. We've got great partnerships with community organizations, the health departments in the area. I've moved on from that and led the department, which includes public, environmental, occupational health, as well as personal wellness programs. And so, again, at OU, I have a solid track record of leading and getting things done, and I really look forward to bringing that to Royal Oak. So we're learning there are a few important challenges that we have to work on as a city. These challenges are aligned with challenges of the state and challenges of the country. The population is aging, so we need to make sure we have amenities and our community is built to support people as they age. The climate is changing and things are getting warmer, and that's also changing things. Millennials and Gen Z, they know this, and this is their top issue. They're choosing where they want to live with this in mind. They're looking for more dense housing, they're looking for transit, they're looking for communities with great cultural centers, with arts and restaurant scenes and creativity. And so I think this positions Royal Oak really well. A third topic that was huge at the Mackinac Policy Convention this week, I was not there, but I'm a nerd and I watched some of it online. A lot of it was about attracting and retaining young professionals. And again, I think Royal Oak is really well positioned to do that. So we've got these things that are going on that we need to pay attention to as a city. And I think we're already doing that. We have the Sustainability and Climate Action Plan that Dr. Herzog took a leadership role on. We've got the Aging in Place plan. We've got our Parks plan. We're having tough conversations about housing. I think that needs to happen. And I think that we can do multiple things. We can have dense housing and preserve and have single family housing as well. We can attract youth and support our seniors at the same time. I think we can do all those things. And I really look forward to continuing to be part of that, hopefully as a city commissioner. So again, I just want to thank you all for your support over the last few months since I announced my run very nervously. This was my first thing here. And so I really appreciate all of your help, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you in the future. Thank you.
We'll have Becca back up for questions, but first we've got Representative Alyssa Slotkin here. U.S. Representative Alyssa Slotkin, a candidate for the U.S. Senate Democratic nomination. So let's please welcome her. Becca, we're running short on time, but we'll get you, if anybody wants to answer your questions, they can get you next month or in August. Anna Herzog, candidate for the Royal Oak City Commission.
You guys hear me? I also have a teacher voice, so I'll use that as well. So I'm Amanda Herzog and I'm running for City Commission. And we have a great group of folks running together, and so it's just been a pleasure working with everyone. So 12 years ago, I moved to the city of Royal Oak after graduating from graduate school at Michigan State University.
All right.
No offense. And my husband and I just love living in Royal Oak. The sense of a strong community, the downtown amenities, the 51 park. There's just so much to love about Royal Oak. And so when we decided to start our family, we couldn't think of a better place to live than Royal Oak. Oh, sorry. And, but Royal Oak is at, and we've heard it today, an inflection point. We have aging infrastructure, we have an aging population, and all the challenges that we face are exacerbated by climate change. And that's putting our community at risk. And some examples are just over the past 2 years, we've had flooding, we've had extended periods of time of power outages. And just this week alone, we've had multiple days of 90-degree weather and air quality action days. And so that's affecting our health and how we live and the strength of our community. So I'm a 40-year-old woman, working mom of 2, one of them is here today. And what works for me in Royal Oak, what services and needs that I have in Royal Oak, what doesn't work for me in Royal Oak is vastly different from the time when I came here as a newlywed with no children. And I'm assuming that's the same for all of you, that your needs are different than mine. And that's what I love about collecting signatures, even though I have to collect 500 and I'm halfway there. And I'm so grateful for all the support that I've been getting from the club, is that I get to talk to folks in our community about what is working for Royal Oak, what is not working for Royal Oak. And so for the reason why I'm running for city commissioner is because it's an exciting time. I know that I brought up all these challenges, but it's an exciting time to be innovative and to reimagine and to address all of these challenges in a new way. Make sure that we have the services and the resources so that we can strengthen to have that community that we all love, but for all of us, not just for me. So,
Any questions for Amanda? Amanda Herzog, candidate for Royal Oak. This is our calendar, new business portion of the meeting. In August, we're going to meet at the Royal Oak Public Library. Won't be meeting here because there's going to be some construction in this building. We've got our board meeting, the Royal Oak Democratic Club board meeting Friday at 7 p.m. at Lisa Mason's house. Check her email for that. Remember this Thursday, 6:30 p.m. at the school board meeting. Come and speak at public comment over at Churchill. And then June 29th, Matt Binkowski's having a fundraiser, so don't forget about that. Does anybody have any calendar or new business items? Sure, go ahead.
I just want to, tomorrow is the Royal Oak Human Rights Commission. Monday, I'm sorry, I'm like, totally. I just want to invite people to come to that meeting. That's a new committee or commission, and multiple places for public comment, or just to kind of check in and see how they're doing.
What Human Rights Commission, when, where?
It's 6:30 at City Hall.
Monday night.
Monday night.
Monday night, 6:30 p.m. at Royal Oak City Hall. Okay. Any other calendar or new business items? Sure, why don't you lead us out?
Okay.
So you see our new songbooks. I don't attribute this to the Royal Oak Democratic Party because of all the copyrights I violated in assembling these lyrics. So I tried to, that's an input from people trying to choose songs that were familiar to us, the melodies at any rate. I did include in here, Lift Every Voice and Sing, the Black National Anthem, which maybe people, a tune that maybe people aren't familiar with, but based on input from a number of people, I feel is appropriate to include and for us to embrace. It does say lift every voice and sing. And I think every should include the Democratic Club of Royal Oak. So on YouTube, find the tune, learn the tune, and sometime over in the future, we will add that to our repertoire. But today we're doing a simple one. We're going to do the first 3 verses of We Shall Overcome. Stand up. Yeah, everybody sings better when they're standing.
Page 7.
So page 7. And we shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall. Second verse. The rock in and we shall overcome sound. Rivers, we shall be free. We shall be free. We shall to believe. We shall be someday.
All in favor? In August at the public library, August only, we won't meet here, we will meet at the
Meeting someplace.
library. Go to Mike James, volunteer to collect some signatures for some of our excellent city commission candidates. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,